We, as I sent out the voice note today, I realized that we did a ton last night, and the second half was a little bit technical. So I would like to do that again. I'm just, I'll tell you myself, I saw that it was a little bit technical. I noticed it was a little bit tedious, and I feel like we should do it one more time, Chazar. So let's do Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. We're about, 15 lines into the Amar. The first word of the line is Rav Yehuda. Yudam Beis. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Mutter Lishain Bekila B'Sukkah. We said last night how this is really full circle. This takes us all the way back to Dav Beis. Oh, actually, I'm supposed to mention that in anticipation of the event at Bellworks on January 7th, they sent out an email today that they're putting together, I read it very quickly, some sort of book. They want some pictures of the Chabura that we have from our events, and they want a few quotes. So if anyone has anything particular, a line or two that they would like to share with the world, please send it to, myself, Rabavi, the chat, whatever you want, and we'd happily include it. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Mutter lishan b'kila b'sukkah. You're allowed to sleep in a kila. A kila is a canopy bed in a sukkah. Afal pi, even though sheyesh lagag, it has a roof. Again, we have our bed with our four posts and the canopy on top of it. Says the Gemara, afal pi sheyesh lagag, you're allowed to sleep underneath it. V'hu she'enai gavoya asara. Says Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, but the roof of this canopy cannot be 10 Tvachim tall. Now that din, that you're allowed to sleep under it, if it is not 10 Tvachim tall, again, that's what we're going to deal with for part A of today, which is the Chazar of yesterday. So again, you're sleeping in a sukkah, on a bed, underneath, we'll call it a canopy, a sheet, that is not 10 Tvachim tall. Tashema, says Gemara, let's ask a kasha. Hayashin bekila b'sukkah. Someone who is sleeping in a kila, in a sukkah, lo yati dechavasai. Asks the Gemara, you, Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, said you're yes yaitse, but the Brisa says you're not yaitse. Answers the Gemara, hachva mayaskinan kishagaiva asara. We're talking about that it's 10 Tvachim tall. That's why you're not yaitse. Again, if it's 10 Tvachim tall, then it's a reshus, it's its own area. Says the Gemara, therefore you're not a yaitse. Why not? Because you're not in the sukkah. Rather, where are you? You're inside the kila. You're inside the canopy bed. Kasha number one, Tarsa one.
Is there any relation to how tall the sukkah is?
So at the moment, no.
If you have another 10 Tvachim,
Sukkah could be another million Tvachim. The issue is, that's Ray Koch's point, he had a good point. What's the psul here? Is the psul here because there's not enough airspace? Maybe we know sukkah has to be 10 Tvachim. So maybe because from the top of my canopy to the schach is not enough air. That's not the psul the Gemara is teaching us. The psul here is merely the fact that you're not under the schach. Why not? Because once it is 10 Tvachim tall, then it's its own area. Once it's 10 Tvachim tall, then it is its own area. Says the Gemara, Meisvei, another kasha. Hayashi Tachsamita, this was our first Mishnah we learned to the beginning of the second parak. Layatzi dechavasai. Answers the Gemara, we should all know this answer already. Hatir Gemara Shmuel already explained. B'mita goya asara. Once it's 10 Tvachim. Now, it's interesting, because if you remember when we learned at the beginning of the second parak, and Shmuel told us didn't have 10 Tvachim, we all asked, what's 10 Tvachim? It's such a funny number. And at the time we said the Rishonim deal with it, and it indeed is a funny number. Now we sort of pretend to understand it, because we know that a sukkah's minimum height is 10 Tvachim. Shkayach still, why is that the height of the bed? We don't really understand it, but that's what the Rishonim there said, and that's what we continue with. Tash. That's 3 Tvachim. 3 Tvachim. That's the height of a chair. Height of a chair is 3 Tvachim. There is, 10 is a number, but it's so interesting. Tashema, Nachai Kasha, another question asked the Gemara. Oi, Shepires al gabe kinoifes. You spread over your sheet on top of a kinoifes. psula. Now, what is a kinaifes? Kinaifes is a four-poled bed. You have the sheet on top of the four poles. Says the Gemara, it's possible. Answers the Gemara again. Asanami the gviya asara. Asks the Gemara, it doesn't say that. Why not? Titania, we learned in a brayso, naklitin. What is naklitin? It's a type of bed with shnayim, with two posts. That's what we call the teepee bed. You have two posts at the end, and you have that teepee over it. So naklitin is shnayim. Kinoifes is arba. Piris al gabe kinoifes. If you spread the sheet over the kinoifes, over all four poles, psula. Al gabi naklitin, if you spread it over the naklitin, the two poles, kshera, ubilvad, with regard to the naklitin, with regard to the two-poled bed, the teepee bed, shelo yu naklitin v'ayim minamita sara, can't be 10 tvachim. So the clear implication is only by the teepee bed. Good evening, Rabbi Rosenthal. Only by the teepee bed is there a difference in height of asara. Michlal, the kinoifes, when it comes to the four-poled canopy bed, afal bi she'eina gvaya asara, it's still going to be possible. Answers the Gemara, shiny kinoifes, the kivi. So now we're learning a second reason why it's an issue. Again, reason number one why sleeping under the canopy in your sukkah is a problem is why? Because it's 10 tefachim tall. Reason number two, says the Gemara, because it's kaviyah. It's permanent of sorts, therefore it's a problem sleeping underneath it. Asks the Gemara, 1 second, back to Yud Amud Aleph, Vari Sukkah. But we have a sukkah, gabe sukkah, one sukkah on top of the next, which we had on the previous Amud Aleph. The kivi, which is also permanent of sorts. It's a full-fledged sukkah. And yet, good evening, Rabbi Rosenthal Sr. The Amar Shmuel, kach sheiroi, kach psula. We learned in Amud Aleph, if you remember, there were 3 shitais as to the height of the top sukkah. Either 1 tefach, 4 tefachim, or 10 tefachim. 10 tefachim was Shmuel. Kach sheiroi, kach psula. Just like the way to machshir the sukkah, which is 10 tefachim, so too, to passel the sukkah is 10 tefachim. Kach sheiroi, kach psula. So what do we see, asks the Gemara, that even though it's kvi, still needs 10 tefachim. We just answered that when we have our 4 poles on top of our bed, since it's kivi, it's a problem even if it's not 10 tefachim. We see here it says it's only a problem if it's yes 10 tefachim. Answers the Gemara, Amri Hasam Dil Mifsal Sukkah. Over there it's coming to passel the sukkah, Ba'asara. Therefore it needs to be 10 tefachim. Over here, here we're trying to say what height the canopy is considered an oyel, and therefore batzar me'asara nami ave oyela have oyela. It's already an oyel if it is kavua. So at the end of the day, the Gemara settles that there's 2 issues, 2 times I should say, that one is not allowed to sleep under a bed in a sukkah. And as we mentioned last night, this is full circle from the second parak of Ayashin Tachsamita Lo Yatsa. What are the 2 times? If the bed is either 10 tefachim tall, and therefore it's its own rishos, you can't be underneath it, or if the bed is kavua, which we learned just now means like the poles which are there, they are kavua. And now we go into a new shtickle Gemara. Amar Rav Tachlifa Bar Avimi. We're about 10 lines from the bottom. First word on line is Tachlifa. Amar Rav Tachlifa Bar Avimi Amar Shmuel. Now, we're going to see how different areas of halacha intersect. It's very fascinating what we're about to see. Because we just said a moment ago that if you're sleeping in a sukkah, in the bed, under a canopy, when is it a problem? If it's 10 tefachim. What does that mean? That means it's its own area. So now, what does that do for us? Says the Gemara. Amar Rav Tachlifa Bar Avimi Amar Shmuel. Hayashem B'Kila. Someone is sleeping in a kila. Again, a kila is this canopy bed, the bed with 4 posts with a sheet on top of it. Arum, he's undressed. Now he has a problem. His problem is he has to say Shema. And you're not allowed to say Shema when you are undressed. If Shashi's not here, if he was, I would reference those learning Amud Yaimi. The Gemara Brachas that we just learned, the Daf Chavei Chavav over there, discusses this precise halacha. Now we also have to appreciate back Bisman Chazal, they didn't have fancy clothing like we had, they had more just robes, which is the reason why these are very prevalent shaila. Because when you have a robe, what? Like the Arab robes, mamish. They're still living in nostalgic 3,000 years ago in many areas. But bombs and guns, they've seemed to adapt well. Camels, avada. So that's one area. Now here you have this guy sleeping in a bed. He's undressed, but he has to see Shema. Says the Braisa, you know what he could do? Maitzi roishai. He could stick out his head. Chutz likila. Can you get the picture, Bakar Nachi? Chutz likila. Don't worry, there's not a picture of anyone undressed in the canopy bed over there. Don't get nervous. Chutz likila. We got the children's edition. The adult edition is for another time. Chutz likila. You're allowed to stick your bed outside of the kila, outside of the canopy, and say Shema. Says the Gemara. You're allowed to. You're allowed to here. It's just important to visualize. Makes it a little bit easier over here. Here's our kila. Here's our bed with a canopy. Again, it is very simple, but it gives you easier time to visualize. And now you're going to stick your head outside of that sheet area in order to say Shema. Says the Braisa, that is allowed. Now we can understand why is that allowed? Because your head's in a different rishus. There you go. Your body is under the canopy. Now you had to. Now, okay, we'll make a comment about this afterwards. Oh, so let's see. So far, we just said, regarding the canopy, you're undressed, pop your head out, you say Shema. Says the Gemara, Meisvei, I'll ask you a kasha. Hayashein bikilarum. Someone who's sleeping in a canopy undressed, says the Braisa, the Braisa says the exact opposite. You're not allowed to stick your head out and say Shema. Says the Gemara, Stira. Answers the Gemara, here in the Braisa that says that you're not allowed to stick your head out to say Shema is when what? Kishegoiva asara tfachim is when it is 10 tfachim. And therefore what? Therefore it's its own rishus. So 1 second, sticking your head out is not going to help you. Why not? Because since your whole body is in one rishus, sticking your head out doesn't do anything. Whereas, let's say one is under a blanket, and then he would stick his head out, it would, yes, work. Now, not la halach, we'll make a comment on that afterwards. But then he would theoretically, yes, work. Why? Because your head is out of the area with your undressed body. I'm sorry, what's your question?
Could it be a difference also if we're talking about a kila or a bed?
Our kila is a bed.
Right, but the bed in the second part, we're talking about sleeping under the bed. The bottom.
Woo! That was close. Sorry for guys in Zoom. That was probably loud in your ears. I hope you're not wearing headphones. No, that's true.
So automatically, if he's sleeping on that bed, that's a different.
No, you're sleeping under the bed. So there, if the bed is 10 tefachim tall, it's a tall bed. It's about yay high. Got to climb up into it. Then it's its own rishus underneath it. So that's why it's no difference. The only difference would be about the kavua aspect. It's not really so kavua, it's a bed. But yeah, it ain't no chanami. But now, says the Gemara, listen to this raya, gishmak raya. Hachinam mistavra, says the Gemara, the teretz is mistaver. It is logical. Midiktani seifa, because the end of the Braisa said, the Braisa which speaks about sleeping undressed, and the canopy which just said you're not allowed to stick your head out. Why are you not allowed to stick your head out? Because the canopy is 10 tefachim tall. Says the Braisa, holamazeh doime. To what is this comparable? La'oimed bebayis arum. You're in your house undressed. Don't pop your head out of the window. Why not? Because your house is more than 10 tefachim tall. So you think, Gavaldik, why get dressed? Just pop your head out. Okay, you might get arrested. Someone might wonder, what in the world's going on? This guy's head is sticking out the window. Shema! Interesting chevra. Shema mina, says the Gemara, that is a conclusive proof. Move to the top of Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. The Gemara there explains, Ubayis nami or Ubayis Afal pi she'ein gavaya asar, concludes the Gemara and wraps up all sugyas together. And this is sort of what you were pointing out, the difference between a bed and something else. Akila. Ubayis, even though it's not 10 tefachim tall, maybe like a little, I don't know, a little closet area. Kivan de kivi oyalahu. Since it's kavua, therefore, oyalahu automatically has a din of an oyel. And you're not allowed to say Shema with your head popped out. To loigara me ki noifes, which is no less than the ki noifes, which is the two-poled, I always make this mistake. The ki noifes, excuse me, is a four-poled structure, which he said is kavua. That's the end of the Gemara. The comment I want to make, just so that no one walks out with the wrong halacha, and it could be relevant. I'll tell you in a case it could be relevant. Let's say one's wearing a robe. You're wearing a robe. Under the robe, you're not wearing any clothing. Just came out of the shower. If you're a robe person, if you're not a robe person, leave the robe. The robe people live. Listen, different segments of Klal Yisrael. So you're a robe guy and you're wearing a robe. Givaldik. Can you say Shema? Very common case. You're wearing a robe. You want to say Shema? The answer is no. Why not? Because under the robe you're fully undressed. Your head is sticking out of the robe, or you're wrapped in a towel, you're wrapped in a blanket. The answer is we paskin lahalacha. It's not about your head. It's about your heart. It's about liba yuroya es erva. Your heart can't see your makam erva. So lahalacha, what do? If you're wearing a robe, you tie the belt. If you tie the belt, that creates a separation between leiv and erva, and then one is allowed to say Shema. So one's wearing underwear, underpants, shorts, pants, or anything else on the bottom of his body, a skirt even, that would be odd. But if he is, then it would have elastic, says Ramesh Feinstein. He doesn't talk about men wearing a skirt, not at all. But it has elastic, and therefore it would work. Different story. Therefore, it would work. Granted, Ramosha actually has the hallmark tshuva in which Ramosha discusses wearing a gartel by davening, and he says the reason why it's not necessary is because we all wear underwear. That's what Ramosha says, and there's elastic on it. Because there's elastic, it automatically blocks your lave to your erva. Sorry if you're wearing pants and everything else, but it blocks your lave to your erva, and therefore it's not a problem.
That's the reason
That's one of the reasons. It's one of two reasons. One reason, the halachic reason to wear a gartel is that you can't have a separate. You need to have a separation between leiv and erva. And they have to go back, nostalgic 3,000 years ago, that they're wearing one long toga. Wearing a long toga. So now if you put on a gartel, it creates a separation.
That's why in the Beis Hamikdash they wore
The kohanim, very good. One of the begadim was a thing. Now the grada, it is interesting to note. The Mishnah Berurah does say that even one who doesn't have this liboy rice ever, Mishnah Berurah says midas chasidus is to wear a gartel. It's interesting. It doesn't mean when Mishnah Berurah writes midas chasidus, doesn't mean chasidim. He means for pious people, like he would be talking to himself. This is why Rav Chaim Kanievsky Lamaisa wears a gartel. Well, he's in the Ilum Emes right now. Up there, he's probably wearing a gartel also. Depends who you ask. The Chassidim say he's wearing two. Okay, chvesish. But Lamaisa, he wore a gartel. Was?
Let's get gartel.
Oh, so it's a guard that's a kasha. It's a kasha that everyone asks on the ganze Litvische Welt. What's going on? What's going on? So the teretz they give, sometimes the kasha is better than the teretz, as we've learned in yeshiva sometimes. Teretz they give is our jackets have buttons. Our jackets have buttons. So our jacket, when you close the jacket, that's the tsura. And the Mishnah Berurah over there is so about a halacha of hikoin, a halacha of dressing properly. Masha'im came back in the times of Chazal, they just had some sort of like jacket type of thing, and it wasn't closed. So they want to explain that the gartel was just there to close things together, to give it the tsura of appropriate tefillah, and that's why many in the Litvische world do not wear a gartel, but that's where it comes from, the yes wearing a gartel, the no wearing a gartel. What do the worlds have to do with us over here? How do we get there? Because Kriyishma, Avada, Libra, and Erva. Okay, Chaver, tomorrow night we're going to do a little weiter. Again, a reminder, Chanukah, we're going to be off. We're going to do Chazar of Chanukah. If anyone wants, Mir Tashem, tomorrow night after Shir, after Ma'ariv, we'll have a Hilchas Chanukah Shir with food, of course. Kiyadua.